I hope they're all listening to this, the players, because it saved me sending a WhatsApp. You've got to be smart, because when they get there, they're not going to be anonymous.
We got in a culture of play 2 games dropped, but I got the sense that you came in Baz certainly went, you're my players.
Doesn't matter whether you succeed or fail, as long as you're doing it to the style and identity, that's fine. Ducky is like a hand grenade in the media. When he gets asked the gotcha question, he just blurts out, we'll chase, more the merrier. You know, don't just get 300, get 7,000 and we'll chase it, right? This thing came out like, when are you going to declare BFK, which he called me, which meant Big Fat Keezy, right? But when he got asked that on Sky, he go, oh, he sort of get a bit nervous, go, oh, big friendly Keezy.
I'm delighted to say we're joined by England MD Rob Key.
As serious as ever. Good to have you, Keezy. Thanks for coming on.
Can you take us into that selection room where you're trying to identify these players?
So it starts before that, from going into the room. So you see, so we have a whole network now, whether it's scouts, now the analytics that you get, so we track every single ball that happens for fast bowlers, anything. You can see the swing, you can see how much they move, it release, all that stuff. And what the data does and what the analytics and the scouting does, it narrows the playing field. So you start zoning in on the players that you really like. So Ben Duckett, for example, slightly different. I played against Duckett. He got 200s against us. And I remember being captain and just thinking, why? He got 200s and we couldn't bowl a dot ball at him. And I'm like, what is going on? You know, what sort of rubbish are our bowlers bowling? I was a captain that didn't think bowlers should bowl back balls, which you would have hated. But every ball was like, pew, and I'm thinking, this bloke, without even breaking sweat, is putting us under pressure. And that's the thing. And you just see something, I don't know what it is. I don't think it ever takes long. Like there's a few things that just catch your eye, and Baz and I reckon it's about 40 seconds worth, where you get these clips and you get the highlights right, which is important. And what you see is the player's best. The game is about your best cricket, not your worst. We are very good at sort of going, yeah, but he does this and he does that. Go, no, what's he good about?
Someone who pulls length or back of a length, pulls it in front of square.
And has that illusion of time, which I think comes from a simplicity of technique and all of that. If you've got loads of moving parts and your head's doing all of this stuff, you're not, I was like that as a player, you're not going to be consistent because there's too much to go wrong. So you see that and you're just like, whoa, here we go, this looks something special here. That's what we saw with like Bashir and just a few clips of him bowling. And then what we do, and we've been our own victims of this really, because then we talk about the WhatsApp group and we just put things on there. But you take Bashir, he then goes to Abu Dhabi to the Lions, where it's like The Apprentice, where there's 6 of the best spinners in the country, we think, that we're looking to select for India. And they have a month in the Lions practicing out in Abu Dhabi with Graham Swan, Andrew Flintoff's there. And we're judging them all the time. So it's a little bit more than just the clips. That's the bit that we go, whoa, here we go. There's something special here. Then we explore.
So how does that go, telling people they're picked or not making it? Or it must be a great phone call to make. Who gets the honour of doing that?
Well, Baz does that. When I started, I did all the negative calls, and then it became clear that if every time I rang someone, they start, think this isn't going to be great news. So then, as it's evolved, Baz basically does the important calls, so good or bad. So if you're being left out, if it's a contentious one, he'll do that. And generally, I think with Will Jacks, I said, how was Jacksy? I spoke to him after. I said, all right, mate, well done. How was it? And all of that. And he's like, yeah, Baz sort of spoke to me for a minute. And then said, oh, by the way, you're going to the Ashes. Oh, right, like that. And then there's not much else, like the same thing. So he does it. And then we're a bit like, look, because when you leave players out, I think is the other thing. When you end up leaving a player, they often don't hear what you're saying because it's not the time then to go into reasons why and all of that. So what we do is they say, look, I'm happy to speak to you at any stage. Just let me know. If you need me or Luke Wright or Baz or whatever. So someone like Sam Curran, who we left out, it's like I've met up with him. He said, right, can we go and have a coffee tea? And there's only so much you can say, like keep getting runs, mate, or whatever. But Baz went in and he just went about his business. He sought out the information he needed. He's gone about his business. He's now made his way back. So that's generally how we do it. I mean, a lot of the actual selections are done with probably about, you have Baz, Stokesy, medical people, performance director, you know, a few others that are all inputting into it, but a lot of that's been done before. So at the day of selection is a bit more of like, we have debated this now for the last month, where all the analytics, everything else. So when you have the actual selection, it's sort of pretty simple. It's just like, right, bang, I'll start and I'll say, right, Stokesy, number 1, number 2, you know, and you go down there. Any disagreements? No, right, let's move on.
Do you call every player?
We call every player. This time it was really fiddly. So Baz normally does it, and obviously he's in New Zealand at the moment. So this time though, because we were picking 3 squads, it was a little bit like, right, and trying to remember who's where. And then you've got the players that you're sending out to New Zealand. So it was fiddly this time because you've got so many players that you're doing. But Baz will generally be the one to call everyone. And then we're there. If anyone wants any more, pick up the phone and we'll do whatever you need, you know. But pick up the phone.
A lot of people obviously talk about Baz and Stokesy and their style, and they're very much more on camera than you are. But a lot of the stuff you're talking about, and you put those guys in place, what's your view and your philosophy?
So my thing wasn't about, right, and this doesn't mean it's not important, wasn't about, right, how are we going to win this series? How are we going to win that series? My thing was like, I think English culture, English sport, English cricket in particular, has been far too reserved, far too conservative. Now, people might disagree with that, and that's fine. I'm talking about the mentality. And so I wanted people that could come in, and I wanted a coach that was going to free people up, let them take the aggressive option, let them go out there and see the opportunity. There's a lack of optimism at times with English cricket. You know, we're very good at pointing out all the problems and not the solutions. So that's where then, on that sort of seed, that's where Baz came into it, because he was aligned to that. Stokesy was the same, where it's like, right, you know, we want people to play a more aggressive form of cricket. I want coaches and captains that take pressure off the players in that regard. And the test team was ripe for that because it had a tough time. So that was the thing. But when I look back, I look back to some of the big influences in my career. So I was never a great player, played a little bit for England. But I was probably in one of the greatest eras of county cricket. So the people that when I was, you know, all your great influences, I don't know about you two, but generally when you look back there, when you were 20, 21, 22, when you're younger, and when you get older, you become more cynical. You think you know everything, right? So I was so lucky. We had Rao Dravid at Kent. We had Shane Warne, who then played for Hampshire, and I got to know through playing poker. And there was that great Australian era that came into cricket then when so many, whether it was Strauss, Vaughan, all of that, this came into our game. And the way they thought was sort of really infectious into how you thought as a player, and it shaped the way that I did it really, and my views on the game. And when you look, then Baz was the same, because when he was at that age, I think he went out to Sydney and spent 6 months in Sydney with Steve Waugh and those guys, training with New South Wales, because Liz, his wife, is an Australian from Sydney. So that was the influences that came in. But the biggest one really was Warne and how he did it.
How did you end up playing poker with Shane Warne?
So I know you two might be too young, so there was a craze of Texas Hold'em. So everyone was playing Texas Hold'em was the game. You had online poker, and Warne was like the biggest kid. The biggest cricket nuffy as well. So we would play against him, and in that, we would then have like these massive sets of poker chips. There was a few of us in the Kent team. There was Mascarenhas, Warne, Sean Irvine in the Hampshire side. And so if it rained, we'd all run off. Warne would sledge us and everything, and then we'd run off and we'd go and play poker. And in that, it's like exactly the same thing. You're sitting around, I'm saying like, Warne, how do you set a field for like that reverse hit that people had started to play? And he'd be like, mate, you just bowl a pie as slow as you can outside of stump, and then just, you know, they spoon it in the air. And you're like, all right, what's your view on, you know, what about, but he said, mate, you can have every man on the boundary, but it's always how you're getting people out. How are you getting people out? So then it starts to do it. He would play in a game against Kent. I remember it at Canterbury. And, you know, he was a smoker, stuff like that, like I was then. It was the only good thing that came out of smoking was me speaking to him. Biggest regret of my life doing that. And I remember we're sort of like 400 going into tea on the sort of penultimate day, on the third day, and he's a bit like, when are you going to declare BFK, which he called me, which meant Big Fat Keezy, right? But when he got asked that on Sky, he go, oh, he sort of get a bit nervous, go, oh, big friendly Keezy. And he's going to me, mate, how safe are you? You know, how many runs do you need? You know, how many's enough? When are you going to declare? It's like negative. And he would bowl balls, and if you remember Canterbury, he would shout abuse at me, bowl a ball, and I wouldn't declare, and he's like, declare, Keezy, you're weak, and all of this. And he's and I could just hear him, you know, like he's just looking up, doing this.
You're in the changing room.
I'm in the changing room laughing because he's now become a mate, and he's sort of like and he's a bit ruder than that, but I can't go into what he's calling me. And he loved cricket, and he loved aggressive, attacking cricket. And I never, and so anyway, we end up not declaring. We get like 500. I'm like, oh, I can keep the field in, and afterwards, we're sitting round at the end, and he's like, mate, what's that? You know, 550 in a day and a half. You know, what's going on? And he's like, you've got to be prepared to lose to win. And I'm sort of at this stage, so I would argue with him. I go, yeah, but it's different for you. No, it's not. My teams believe we can bowl anyone out. My teams, we'd set you 220 and we'd bowl you out. I said, yeah, that's fine for you, mate. You're the greatest bowler of all time. I've got treaders like lobbing them up. You know, it's not quite.
He's a good bowler.
He's a very good bowler. Not Shane Warne though, Tready, right? But it was all of that. It was so infectious. Then when you would play, the fields he would set, I could watch him set a field almost, because he captained a lot like Stokes. And he just believed. So he would set he had Mascarenas bowling, literally 68 mile an hour, just straight on a length, couldn't do anything else. He'd have slips round here, he'd have short leg, he'd have silly point, and you made you feel like this bloke's bowling absolute hand grenades. And every time you go, oh, and you go, Jesus, BFK, what the? And you're like, oh my God, it's just one. And when he let go of the ball, I can't remember, you would have played him. Do you play Warnie?
No.
This thing came out like, and if you played like the best forward defensive, he'd make you feel like you had played the worst shot ever.
He'd just stand in the middle of the pitch and all sorts, wouldn't he? He had a theatre about him that he was dominating at any stage. His influence is quite interesting, actually. I'm sure he's influenced virtually every cricketer that's playing the game now. But our group in 2023 Ashes, if you remember, Pat Cummins runs in first ball of the Ashes.
Yeah.
Zach Crawley hits one of the greatest shots through extra cover 4. But they had 2 slips in a gully and a deep point.
Yes,
and in our changing room, everyone was going, could you imagine if Shane Warne was on commentary now? Even before a ball's bowled, he'd be going ballistic. He'd hate this. It's like the least Australian thing in the world. So the influence of his attacking psychology was in our change room, I think.
He had the best cricket brain. So things like, and this is what gets people, I think, sort of misunderstand at times, because Ducky is like a hand grenade in the media. When he gets asked the gotcha question, he just blurts out, we'll chase more the merrier. You know, don't just get 300, get 7,000 and we'll chase it, right? And he doesn't mean that. But the point, and this is where Warnie, I always remember, you know, he would say, and I used to think this, you know, if it's the last day and you've got to bat out the day, you know, you might need 350, 400. He'd be like, we're going for him. And that doesn't mean you're slogging from ball one, but just that alone, I think you've got more chance of surviving the day, because your brain, just the whole point for me, my biggest belief is that your brain works better when you're thinking positively. So the whole point is like you defend better when you're being positive. Doesn't mean go out there and go, psh, psh, and you got to slog. And what we don't want is players that positive cricket to them means running down the deck every ball and putting your risk at 100%. It's like, have you got the talent, which he's one of the best in the world ever at, of putting the bowler's best ball under pressure? That is the reason why live sport, test cricket, anything, because it puts all the fans in that place where you don't know what's going to happen, where you're thinking like I hated part of that India series. At Lords, when we couldn't get those wickets, and everyone, how good is this? This is horrendous. I feel sick.
Yeah,
you know,
you're a bit of a nervous. During the Ashes 23, you'd watch all day, but you'd be in an office somewhere. So you're a bit of a nervous watcher.
No, I try and portray that I'm not a nervous watcher, but I think everyone is. They're just better at hiding it. So you sit there. No one's like when you can't get. We're going, oh, this is fine.
Yeah.
I think inside, the big thing is, it's like, the coaches that blow up all the time. We all do that in our heads, I think. You'd have done it as a captain, you as a player, and and especially in that environment, you try and hide it a bit, don't you? Because you don't want, if he's got a bat next, the last thing he wants is someone going, what's that about? What are you doing? And that's like all the games we play with ourselves. And the best people are better at hiding those insecurities and worry than others, really.
That was your advice to me, was wear sunglasses. It's just like your eyes look like you want to kill someone.
And smile more. Practice smiling.
Practice smiling. That was Baz. And Keezy was like, whatever you do, wear sunglasses, because you just look like the whole world's against us. Everything's going wrong. But I completely understand that thing. It's a, like you say, those tricks of the mind. It's like the image Baz portrays on the balcony is one of control, but behind those sunglasses, who knows what's going on. But it's a great way for, I think, the way you have changed cricket or whatever, like you say, come in and have skin in the game and see the upside, which is brilliant, because it is untraditional for English people to see that. And obviously in this squad that we've got, there's a lot of people with upside. There's, like you say, those selections that are not off the cuff. I mean, sorry, what's the best way to describe it? By surprise. But like, then when you think about it, you're like, okay, it actually makes sense. I see the idea. Ashes cricket always seems to be the thing that's dominated, I don't know, the narrative around. Like, at what point are you starting to try and formulate the squad and the side for this series? So you come in, 3.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Did you almost look out, right, that could be the time when I want, to go and do something incredibly special in Australia, and we'll start moulding something that is a side that's wants to win along the way, but is this team that will give us the best chance in Australia?
Yeah, I think there's an element of short term and an element of long term. So what we tried to do with the bowling has pretty much been, because him and Jimmy were coming towards the end, like you had to then reinvigorate the bowling attack. You had no choice. So at the start it was, we had, remember there's loads of injuries. You and Jimmy had been dropped or left out, whatever it was. But, and the bowling was very experienced, but the batting wasn't. So it's like, right, first year, let's get the batting right. Let's give them confidence. There's so much talent in that setup. Johnny Bairstow, all these guys, that you just felt that had been a little bit stifled for lots of different reasons.
Well, you gave them a run, first of all. We got in a culture of play 2 games dropped. I think it was 54 players we used in 16 tests or something insane like that for different reasons. But I got the sense that you came in, Baz certainly went, you're my players, you're playing. Speak to you at the end of the summer type thing. It was like, you're going to go.
And that's why Baz, when I saw him on here, that's a big thing, because it's very hard to get players, if they've got to take high risk and got to play an aggressive game, if the first thing you do is drop them, it doesn't work. So I've been thinking about this for a while, like the thing that they do, and I saw a clip from where you were saying from last week, actually. The thing that they do really well. So when you've got your style and which might be to play aggressively, might be to take risk, at the first sign of trouble, how you deal with that is really important. So for example, you said the Phil Salt story. I think that is some of the most powerful bits of, getting the best out of players, is when they fail playing the style that you want, which is aggressive, you praise them. Yeah. So you actually make a point of saying, like, didn't work this time, but you keep going like that. He did it with Duckett, got out first ball in the second innings of Pakistan 2-3 years ago. Duckett, he just went, well done, Ruti, well done, I think, whoever got runs, and Pope or whatever. And he went, Ducky, that's your shot, never put it away, you'll get a lot of runs with that, moved on. And that is like, wow. And I think that's one of the most important traits that they have. And that's what they do so well. They give backing to players.
Yeah.
That allows you to fail. As long as you're doing it, doesn't matter whether you succeed or fail, as long as you're doing it to the style and identity, that's fine. You'll be backed. If you go away from that, then you might find yourself out of that.
But you're picking on character and obviously backing players. But going to Australia, have you had in the back of your mind, okay, well, Bethel's a good player, the short ball, so Australia might suit him, or Josh Tongue can expose a slightly fuller length, gets movement but has high pace, slightly the wrong side of it, quite awkward face, will suit Australia. You're still building a squad, 16
16-man squad, yeah, with the whole line, so it's like nearly a 40-man squad.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
You're still building a squad based on players that you think can succeed in Australia.
Yeah, for that we are. And like we'd take a different squad to India, we'd have more spin, all of that, the makeup. But generally the thought is that, you know, that is what's required to succeed at international level. That's the makeup. Same with white ball as well, where these are just the bowlers. When you look at the best bowlers, people, you know, forget that for most of your career, you were 85 plus and you had skill and you had release, all that stuff. That is what's required to be really successful at international cricket. And then you need to build a team that has the different versions of that. So it might be Mark Wood, short, skiddy, 92 mile an hour, Jofra, you know, who has a bit of everything. Then you might have someone like Matt Potts who can bowl that little bit fuller and for different conditions. But that, I think, is not as simple as saying, we've just done everything for Australia. This is where we think the next era of English cricket needs to go across all formats, you know, rather. So we need a left armer. So we're trying to invest in Josh Hull, who might be 2 or 3 years away, but you're just trying to build something that's going to sustain itself for a long period of time. And hopefully along the way, that helps you win the Ashes. That then helps you win in India, helps you win at all these different places. And that's more the theory than just, right, we're all on, it's chips all in the middle for the Ashes. It might be for everyone else, but for us, it's not been about that. It's been, this is what we think is going to take us forward.
This episode is sponsored by Thriver. And if you go to their website, linked in our episode description, you can get 20% off your first blood test using our code Love of Cricket.
I'm all over this one, Jose. When you get to a certain age, and I've now fallen out of being a professional athlete, spent all those years getting monitored, and now I don't have that. So doing this, did the Thriver Health Questionnaire, sent off my first blood test, getting that consistent monitoring is so important to me and for my future health.
I'm on board too, Broady. You're never too young to look after yourself and stay in ship-shape condition.
You are late 30s as well.
Yeah, I know, I'm getting to that age as well. But no, actually, genuinely, I think it'd be really interested to do it. I've never done a blood test like this. Intrigued to see, you know, your markers and get proper live information about my health. I assume I'm healthy because I'm a professional cricketer, but really looking forward to getting the results to this one.
Yeah, it's super easy. It doesn't even hurt. You just send off your sample to Thriver and you get a detailed report written by doctors.
Yeah, it sounds like a no-brainer to me, Broady. It's so important that we take a proactive approach to our well-being.
If you'd like to make informed choices on your lifestyle, give Thriver a go.
And you can use the link in our episode description and code Love of Cricket for 20% off your first blood test. Off-spin seems to be the thing. So, say Will Jacks is probably the only name when you look down that list of 16 guys that you think, oh, that's a surprise pick or something. What's it about Jaxie? Why? And Bashir, what's the thing about off-spin you feel? Is it just the same thing about Australian conditions? Nathan Lyon's been so good for so long.
Yeah, Nathan Lyon sort of skews a bit of the data and analytics, but I think that's it. We think Bashir, you know, he gets a bit of stick, but he's got 60 wickets in, 17 games, something like that. He's 21, he'll get better and better. So we invest in that. You feel that those conditions out there, that bit of overspin, the height, the bounce, that's going to be helpful. You might have Stark's foot marks, all of that type of stuff. He's a wicket taker. You know, you are going to need a spinner, we think, to be able to just make sure that, you know, when it gets really hot, as you'll know, you might need someone just to rest people up a little bit, you know, be able to just set the field back. They might not be. That's Shane Warne's one of his greatest skills was that he could bowl in the first innings. He could bowl 15, 20 plus overs going at 2.5 and over. Now, the game has evolved. That might not be possible for a spinner, but that's the thinking that actually and it might change because they might do what Pakistan did and put the industrial blowers on the pitch and play on the same pitch over and over again, you know, but the thinking is that the series isn't going to be defined by the spinner, you know, but the spinner has a really big role to make sure the seamers can do it. And when you look in years gone by, it's actually the batting that, you know, you've got to get runs. If you look at where Australia's batting's been and England's in Australia, it's like that.
Ponting said to me, when we won in 2010-11, our average partnership was over 50. And since then, it's been like 20. That's a big difference. shows like runs, and there's loads of reasons for that, isn't there? It's because you've been in the field a long time, so you can't get wickets, so you're tired, and the Aussies have got an incredible bowling lineup that are relentless. But you do need runs on the board. Like 270 there doesn't necessarily cut it. Although what I would say is the pitches have tweaked a little bit since Pat Cummins has come in as captain. They're a bit more bowler friendly, aren't they?
Well, Melbourne. Did you play Melbourne last time? Wasn't that? That looked like one of the toughest.
That did the most
batting ever.
That did the most, or second most since Hawkeye data was collected. I think since 2005. It like seamed and bounced and nipped the most. Great pitch to run drinks on, actually. Fantastic.
Did you not play that one?
Didn't play that one.
Did you play?
It was null and void, though. He wasn't there.
Yeah, I think that particular test was null and void. I think
That was Scott building a statue. That was
building a statue, 6 for 9
at the G or something. God, dear cheese.
Yeah. But how much do you look at Australia? Everything you talk about is very much about when you took the job. When you were looking at that job, it was restructuring, restyling English cricket. But you're playing top flight international sport. Every sport in the world will look at the opposition in some way, shape or form. Do you have scouts? Are you watching what's going on there? Do you have analysts in bunkers doing all the numbers on, like Khawaja nicking off from full of a length, all that sort of stuff? Or do you go and say, we're building this with our England team, we go and play our best cricket wherever in the world and we can win?
We do a little bit of everything. Like we have on the Border Gavaskar series, which is the most recent one probably that's been out there. We have a whole load of analytics that's gone into what happened in that series, stuff like that. So it's a mixture, but all of that stuff really, and you got to remember Baz and Stokesy in particular. The two of those, they've got a feel. They're not far off where the analysts come out as well because they've got good cricket brains. So they don't need, like, it's a bit like someone said about Dhoni. He sort of does everything an analyst would say anyway. And the same thing, so they're a little bit, like, their intuition is very much aligned to what the data would say anyway. And that comes a bit more, so I mean, you guys probably know more about it because I'm not in the dressing room. We try and create a world where players take responsibility themselves. I have an issue with the way we coach kids. I think we tell them what to do all the time. Drives me mad. So you create players and young adults that can't think for themselves. It's a different rant I could go on, but you want to go out there and be successful. You get what you need. So if you want to know how someone's playing, what their weaknesses are, what their stats are, you can get that. But that's down to you. It's not like sit down and go, how many meetings do you reckon you saw in that time you were playing? How many meetings did you have where you just went through the opposition?
Thousands.
Oh, did you?
Well, not with Baz. No, not with Baz. None, I think, with Baz and Stokesy, because it was that mindset of, we've all sat through bowlers meetings over the years. Top of off, occasional bouncer. Yeah, next. I think top of off, occasional bouncer, but you could drag him across a bit. Yeah, okay, right, next. Maybe top of off, but occasional bouncer. And ultimately, for me, the skill of bowling is I wanted that information. I needed that information. But we had an app at the time where you could go and check out any player in the world, see where they get out, see where they hit 4s and 6s. I wanted, in the back of my brain, a bit of info. But the art of bowling, when you're playing for Edgerton Park Cricket Club or like Leicester, you don't have information of how to get this batter out. You feel the pitch. You feel what that batter's triggering that day. Some days, Steve Smith might walk out and be triggering more than he was last week. So he's more of an LBW candidate or something. You feel the game out there and expose that pitch with the ball you've got in your hand at the time that batter's batting. I like to have the info of what was coming. But the art of bowling is not needing Ben Stokes to go, so this guy, bit fuller, nip it back top of off with LBW. You should know that. But is he an LBW candidate today, or actually is he really nervous and he's going to drive at one early, so float one outside off stump, swinging fuller? That's cricket, isn't it? The art of it.
That's what you would do with white ball batting anyway, isn't it? This is the point that I think we go very technical. Not saying it's not important, but I don't think you play the game from a technical point of view. You're thinking about you versus the opposition and the bowler.
What he's saying is technically you're horrendous, but you're really good.
Which is true as well. No, I think for sort of my own game and for everyone's game, it's actually we try and dumb cricketers down sometimes. I think the world's gone a bit data heavy and like the football expected goals or whatever. And then you get Roy Keane actually at the end just say, well, it was 1-0. It doesn't matter how many shots you had or your XG is 3. That's the actual result. But, Broady doesn't need a whole data sheet on how to bowl. He's bowled for 25 years. He knows it. And a lot of it, I find there's those little things about, you might walk out to the pitch on a day, and I always find I want to walk on the pitch to feel it with my spikes. And if it's rock hard, you think might play like this, or if your spikes go in a bit, it might be like this. For the bowlers, you're probably like on this pitch very quickly in 3 or 4 balls. You and Jimmy
that's why I scratched the bowlers. I scratched my front foot landing because I can immediately tell if there's moisture or not.
But that's like, this is the length on this wicket, or this is going to work today, or it's not swinging as much as we expected. So you've got to adapt. And I think you're trying to, from listening to you about data, and then you're trying to match up the intuition, aren't you? And say, is the data telling us something completely opposite to what we're seeing with our own eyes? And it's probably challenging that. But that'd be the same, because it's all about gameplay, isn't it? And when you're talking about Warne, I think that's, some of the best things that we can hear, the aura of the guy and how he bowled, how he made you feel. There's nothing on a sheet of paper that will tell you, well, they probably did this actually with Warne. Shane Warne will make you feel 1 foot tall, like you've never played the game before, like how are you going to deal with that? But that was all part of it. That's all part of the gameplay of it, moving around your crease to create an illusion of something, or you might move a fielder just to create an illusion that this ball is coming. You need that live cricket and that live knowledge, that live intuition and feel. And I think that's where you've got some really good people that you might not always agree, but you're quite aligned on this is how it is. And I'm just saying this as a fan, obviously, you're the boss, and
he's your boss. Actually, you're not mine anymore. I don't care, but he's your boss still.
But by the way, he was a tricky. Don't worry about that. He's sneaky is what he was.
But and having done a bit of leadership, it's like you need that alignment. I know there's a lot of let's have diversity of thinking, but if you're all on different pages, you never do anything, and you just get stuck. And I felt I did that sometimes with my own leadership. Was like I was trying to think about this, trying to do that, and I never really stuck myself on the mark and said this is what we'll do. And I probably got put off, way off course by that World Cup in India. That was really difficult. But that's what I like about the group you've got. You, Baz, Stokesy, even Fred probably in the Lions. That's an important person for you to have that continuity and alignment of way of thinking for the next people coming in as well.
Yeah, and the test team and the white ball team, which you're seeing now, is very much about, right, Jos Buttler, you know what you need, we'll just try and provide it for you, but there's an element where you have to ask it. When you get down to the Lions, you've got to be a bit more prescriptive. With the young, you might have a 17, 18-year-olds, you've got to be a bit more prescriptive. But I sent a thing, Mike Hussey tells a great story about Warne again, where it sounds like a one-trick pony, where everything comes from him. And this is the difference. So I think that at times we're creating a system where people think the answer is about, right, where's my head going? And that is important, all of that, right? But there's a great story. I think Mike Hussey on his debut, and you did this, I think, one of the masters at it, It's that gamesmanship, you versus the batter. And I think this is like the absolute gold standard of how you should think and stuff. So Mike Hussey's at short leg, I think Sarwan's batting. And Warne is like, he's bowled a ball, he's like, Ricky, come in at extra cover on the drive. He's going to get you caught there. He's coming to you, Ricky. And he'd come back, bowls another ball. And he's like, Ricky, one more step closer, one more. There's no where's my hand and all of that. It's like, Ricky, one more step closer, just come in here. He's going to chip one at you. Get ready there, Ricky, it's coming at you. Another slobber one like this. Ricky, just one more closer. And as he walks past the umpire, Hussey reckons he turns around and goes, 5th ball LBW. So everything is like the gamesmanship into making you think something else, but it's him versus Sarwan, and everything is focused on that. So his line is a given, his length is a given, what he's doing with his action is a given, and that's the game. Yeah. That's how we've got to think with stuff. And I don't think, 5th ball LBW nearly gets him. But that's what the great players do. That's what, there's an element where you think, if you don't want to be stupid with stuff. If you've got a left arm seamer in white ball cricket going across you every ball with a bit of bounce, and you're trying to hoik him over there. That's just stupid at times, So it's you versus the bowler. What's your plan? How you do it? That's what we've got. That's what our young players need to. They need to be thinking like that, not where's my bat lift coming from? Give them good fundamentals and just let them play you versus the opposition.
I did. There was a moment, Marnus Labuschagne, bit of an overthinker as a number 3, and I knew he was under a bit of pressure. So I knew Edgbaston was a noisy ground. The crowd love it, and he'd be coming in after we just got 1 wicket. So I knew they'd be up, and I predetermined if I was bowling at him, I'd wait. So he'd take middle. Not good for the over 8, but he'd take middle. But I wanted him to have time to think. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want to rush because you want players not to have time to settle. But I wanted him to have time to, okay, well, what's coming here? And I pre-series mentioned about like a nonsense away swinger, just like like Owen McGrath used to go 5-0, all sorts of rubbish. And I just waited, and you could hear the crowd go, ooh, and then they stopped, and he's still like fidgeting. And as I was running in, the crowd had been waiting for that like 3 minutes, and they were going berserk. And I've had it before in a bad way. You're concentrating on something else. You think about the crowd, and luckily he nicked that one. You could have easily played miss or whatever. But that's the gamesmanship of. I knew that Marnus is an overthinker, so make him wait, make him think, make him like take time to get into the game, overthink what's coming his way. And Baz encourages that sort of thing, doesn't he? Is very much on play the game that is right in front of you right now. Like figure out how you best can expose something in that game, not what's your front arm do.
And that's why you've been one of our greatest bowlers, because there's people who could bowl as quick as you. There's people probably you were a little bit collapsed or whatever it was, and all of that. And your wrist at times would do that. But you're one of our best ever bowlers. You and Jimmy, probably the best bowlers we've ever had. Not because of the attributes you had, because of the way you're able to think about the game and get in the contest and all that. And you're obviously a huge amount of talent. But that's where, and the problem comes if you get so structured and everyone's having one-to-one coaching and parents are paying 50 quid an hour for someone to tell them just, tinker with their technique. You've got to play the game. That's what I didn't do. I spent, most of the things I do is because of what I mucked up at, right? Get obsessed with my bat lift and my stance and all this stuff. And you want people, the best players as you two were and are, you're just playing the game against the opposition. You have moments where you're worrying about thinking about where's this and that. But generally in the heat of battle, you're like, watch the ball, play against the opposition.
When you have those moments of overthinking, you don't play well though. As soon as you're thinking about where your shoulders are,
oh no, that's why I'm shaking it all the time. But what sort of things are important for you, like when you are there in the during the Ashes? So I know you're around a bit, aren't you, in the summer, and you might be watching in the back room. But you say you're going to be there in Australia for the whole time. How does that kind of work throughout the series, or you'll just see what it's like when you get there?
The only thing I found, which you would have seen in the whiteboard, like there's nowhere to sit in the away grounds and stuff, and I prefer watching on TV. For me, I'm there to support now. So we've done all this work. The 11 will be picked. We'll all have an input into it, but Stokesy and Baz will do that. It's for them to really have their, for Stokesy in particular, to go out on the field with the team he's happiest with. Because he's the one, the captain in cricket has...
Not always been the way, has it? It's not always been the case that.
Well, I couldn't speak in the past, but I'd imagine that...
With Baz and Stokesy it has, yeah.
Because they're the ones that have got to, Stokesy's the one. You're bowling now. You're doing this. He needs to know he's got the resource. We've got to help him as much as we can. And then it's like there's no doubt that when we get they've got to be smart, right? And I hope they're all listening to this, the players, because it saved me sending a WhatsApp or an email and telling them like they've got to be smart, because when they get there, they're not going to be anonymous. So I remember in 2003, NASA doing the first press conference saying like, we've got to catch all our catches, like shock. But we've got to catch all our catches. We can't afford to be having to make 15, 20 opportunities and innings, which is absolutely right. The next day at practice, the Western Australian, or after practice, they had picture, I think it was John Crawley dropping a catch, So they're just going to come for it, and that's fine. So our players, I don't know what camera, need to be smart and not get caught doing stupid things, and just be aware that this is going to be potentially one of the best series of all time, going to be compelling viewing. And with that comes an interest that is great for the game.
Don't ruin it before a ball's bowled. Type 5. Where was it? Johnny had a headbutt of someone, didn't he? Where was that? That got released 2 days into the first Test match.
There's always some in there. But that'd be a good balance, though, isn't it, for this? Because it's an important part of this whole side and the culture is to enjoy the country and to do
Correct.
things. But like you say,
The
you're
Aussies
giving
will be there,
your
mate.
word
The
of
Aussies will be there. Don't you worry about
the
that.
photographer in the bushes.
The
and
first
that kind of
duff
thing.
off the tee. England duffs.
Yeah, and you'll have Broady there riling it up for everyone at the
Oh, yeah,
commentary
you're
as
doing
well.
7, aren't you?
But we landed in 2010, and Strauss, we went to a golf course the day after landing, and Strauss hit the first tee shot. And it was maybe like a race day at Flemington or something. So everyone at this golf club was on the lash. They all surrounded the first tee to watch everyone tee off. So I'm like nervous. I'm shit
Did you
myself.
put the club down to see where you were?
Yeah. And Strauss hits his first one, like left a bit. And immediately, it's the only fucking 100 you're getting on this trip, Strauss. Yeah, immediately, straight in, bang. And we loved it. We were all like laughing and cheering and like joining in with the heckling. But you know, you just got to enjoy that. You got to buy
Correct.
into it. But you have to be very aware. Like
It's a bit Ryder Cup, like, isn't it? So, like, you've got to try and you don't want to let them get on top or give them an in or like a.
So I remember you get in a taxi, wouldn't you, or something like that, and we were getting hammered. Like that, we were getting smashed, and blokes would look at you and they go, "Gee, we just want a game, mate. Any chance you could just give us a game? You know, we want a contest." You're like, "Shut up, mate. We're better than you." You know, like.
Yeah.
But everyone, but all of that I think is great. I don't know, you boys would know more. I didn't really. I used to think this when I was doing Sky. All that stuff is like whatever. You know, someone we had the great. I loved him, Bob Willis in the day, just saying like key rubbish and all that. You know, whatever. I think it's much worse now for the forensic analysis of your game. You know, where we'd be on the cart, literally you'd be out to bat, and there'd be NASA or whoever, myself, you know, and you're like getting into the absolute detail of what you're doing wrong. I think that's the stuff that you guys have to deal with. It's actually much tougher than someone just saying you're rubbish.
You actually have to try. I think you have to try and avoid that really, because if you're relying, love NASA, but if you're relying on you or NASA or someone on telly to give you technical advice, you're getting it wrong, aren't you? As a player, if you're playing for England and you're relying on
I don't think anyone
to tell you what,
but I don't
doing.
think anyone is. But that's why I think people should watch something else on the TV in the dressing room. Everyone's got the Sky.
Neighbours.
Yeah, put Neighbours on. Put like Friends on. Like, have a good laugh at Ricky
You go back
Gervais
to
or
the
something.
90s.
Like,
You're
but like-
in. Why? What's happened out there?
Yeah, but it's, in this day and age, if you have half an eye on or go looking for something, whether it's Instagram or you read Sky Sports on the news, you see the headline and you're like, I want to go past it, but you just can't. It's like one of those
It's like
things.
Inception.
But it's the same. Say it rains, and then cricket, you've got time to fill, so you've got to go. Well, we've got to talk about something. Let's talk about this. And you could be in the dressing room, but you've got half an eye going. What are they saying there? So I like, just watch something else. Like put something else on. But I think that's all part of one of these. That's why it's so hard to win away. That's why it's hard to do, and that's one of the beauties of it. Any lessons learned from the Ashes here that you think you can take over there?
I thought there was a lot of good that came out of that series. I mean, you got, like, I did a thing with the board the other day that series we had him, Jimmy, you know, Ollie Robinson, people like that, very experienced attack. This is an attack that's really on the up. You know, these guys had a real pedigree behind them. Now they've got an attack they're going to have to learn, and all the things we're talking about, it's going to be new to them, right? So they're the things, but in general, I just think you've got to keep evolving. You know, I thought that it was one of, and it's because of the nature of sport, to go 2-0 down in that series and come back from that, I thought was one of the most amazing achievements, because that's a moment when you're like, here we go again.
You've just given them the headline there.
Yeah, correct. But you know,
moral victory.
But to come back from that was brilliant management, and for the senior players in that was an amazing effort, because it's really hard when it turns on you like that. To arrest momentum is a really hard thing to do. So there is no doubt going to be moments when we are a long way behind, and it's how you deal with that. Does that knock you off course? When the trouble comes, don't flinch. And I think that's the most important thing. Stick to what's got you to where you are. I don't know why I'm talking like that, but basically just stay true to what you're doing out there and what's got you there.
We had Justin Langer on the pod. He was fantastic. He was a great listen, but he just lent on the fact that he maybe felt England lacked a bit of a killer instinct in big moments in series. Do you agree with that at all, or is that just something that maybe an Australian would say, just have a little niggle?
I think you just evolved, didn't you, really? I think the India series, we had our moments, that's true, but give credit to the opposition. I think there's some brilliant teams in Test cricket now. I thought the win we had in New Zealand last winter, that New Zealand team is going like that as well. Look at their bowling attack. We won that series. So I don't agree with that. I just think that ultimately there's some bloody good teams out there.
Yeah.
This Australian team's going to be really good. And as you know, winning Test series is not easy. And, you have those moments and you just got to be on the right side of it.
Yeah, you need those moments of luck as well, don't you? There'll be something, whether it's on the field, off the field, there'll be a moment that happens that you can't plan for or anything, but it might just be a drop catch here or there, or a nick that goes wide. That there's so many moments. Or
an
in
injury
cricket,
to an opposition player like Lyon.
We had it with, so if you look at the emergence of Bethell, you think when opportunities come, we had Jordan Cox to go there as the spare keeper batter. He gets injured, breaks his finger, so then Pope ends up going there and Bethell comes in at 3, and then you look at what talent he is. So you're going to have the luck. You just got to hope you're on the right side of it.
You just mentioned Jacob Bethell. What makes him so special? Also, what about leadership qualities? He's obviously just been captain in Ireland.
Yeah, I think that when you look, we talk about, you talk about what we want with players that can put bowlers under pressure, can soak up pressure, simple game, all of that, right mentality. He's got all of it. When you watch him, he's got time. He plays well off the back foot. If you're just off, he can really put you under pressure. So that's the part that we see. And he's one of those passes, the 40-second test, where you just think, wow, this kid could be amazing. Then you look at him and the way that he carries himself. So I sat round in the hotel, was the one we stayed in Notts, the Hearts Hotel, is it? And he and Baz and a few of us are sitting round and they're talking about facing bowlers in the nets and that. And Baz is like, guys, I think, you're saying to Beth, you guys, you could end up facing bowlers in the nets a bit more, that might help you. And Beth's like, well, but actually, this is what I think about that, and this is what I think we need. And I was like, blimey, that's punchy from a 21-year-old. And he did it in such a good way. So clear on what he was about and how he's going to evolve, but he's got a nice nature, as you know, with it. He becomes someone, you're looking at in the far future, really, as potential leadership. But leaders aren't just your captain. So he's a really important part. He's a conduit between the Stokes and the younger generation coming through, so he can start developing in that. And there's a lot sort of made about him and Pope. That's going to be the story and stuff. At the moment, Popey's the one that's in possession of that. There's a bit of cricket for Bethell to come. We don't make these decisions till right before, because there's no point worrying and thinking about something until you have to, and that we did that before, and we made it. So when it was Johnny or Brookie for India, imagine if you spend all this time, months before, going, okay, let's do it, and then all of a sudden, it was horrendous really for Harry Brook, and he had personal issues why he had to leave, but it's like, why did we worry about all of that decision making until we had to? So that's why we did that. But he looks just one of those players that could be a generational talent. Bethell in all formats, as we've seen.
It's a bit root-like, isn't it? When he was my age, he was the guy. Thorpe picked him out as, and you want to get them in that environment as quick as possible, don't you? Really, you don't have to wait for the loads of runs in 3 seasons of this and that. They look like they can play. So,
but you remember, it came up on my phone the other day. Tendulkar catching that catch. Do you remember when he was like 16? He was like running.
It was like a one-handed swoop
catch,
and lobbed it over his head.
I might not have been born.
You wouldn't have been born. I was barely alive, but it was like a Headingley or somewhere, and Tendulkar's running around, catches a great catch. It's when Kapil Dev hit 6 sixes against Eddie, or whatever it was, against Eddie Hemmings to avoid the follow-on. It's like, he's 16. I said, Luke Littler's winning world championships at 17. Adam Scott, they reckon had his own plane at 21 from winning golf tournaments. 21, 22 is not that young. There's a lot of I saw a thing, Quinton de Kock playing at 21, David Warne, and all of these guys.
Make too much about age.
Correct, by a long way, either way.
Both ways, yeah.
And it's like, and actually experience, I think this when we're in I get a rant about employing people, like, there's a thing, we can't hire that person, they haven't got any experience. You go, yeah, but what is, if you ask people, they say, what's he so-and-so like as a coach? Yeah, they're all right. Yeah, they've not been too bad. Well, they've been in it for 10, 15 years. You ask everyone, yeah, they're all right. That experience is a really bad, that's not an endorsement to hire that person. You want someone who says, oh, they're amazing. Or you take a punt on someone who's on the way up, So it's, it's that thing about the brain likes certainty. So when you see someone who's got a whole track record of something, you're just much more comfortable. It's much more uncomfortable to have something you don't know what's going to happen.
It's easier for that to go wrong, isn't it?
Correct.
Because you're like, well, this was meant to be this.
That's all we've got time for the Love of Cricket podcast. Rob Keir, huge thank you to you. I want to do a little deal with you before we sign off. That was really fascinating. Loved every moment of this podcast. If England win the Ashes, lift the Ashes in Sydney, can we have you back on the pod in January?
Oh, come on, anytime.
Anytime? Well, we need a bit of a break. A little bit of a gap for me.
All right.
Okay, that's a deal.
Do your rap then. Let's see how professional
No, I'm just
you
going to
are.
say thanks, mate. Well done. Yeah, you were brilliant.
Inspiring.
Thanks, Keezy.